Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please check out the box opening. After washing and labeling the sprues, I was ready to jump in. You start with the axles and brakes. This is my first Vespid kit. The tab placement was routinely well thought out. The plastic is firm enough you can use 1000 or 800 grit sponges. The indexing is almost flawless. There's very little you can get wrong. Mold lines were minimal, so cleanup was quick. I bought this kit at Telford for £30. Then you add the other half of the discs. I'm using Mr. Dissolved putty to fill gaps. To make painting easier, I didn't build it all up just yet. This is the other brake set. I'm pushing myself on this build and not ignoring things I might underneath. That was a little wobbly. I cemented one end and then the other. I started with 260 minutes of raw video for this episode. I have everything as built up and puttied up as I want at this point. They provide the ladder chassis in one piece, which I liked. I wanted to do something with that excess plastic. You need to keep that. I decided to remove the plastic between the pan and the chassis. It's better than it was, but not perfect. I smoothed up the edges. I primed in Mr. Surfacer 1500, 50% Mr. Color Leveling. I checked all the seams, and some needed more work. The drain plug was so small I sanded it off. I added an anise resin one. Which of course was out of view when I did. That looked like it needed a line coming from it. Pretty much all the undercarriage is black, if not dirty. After priming, I covered with satin black as a base coat. For the drivetrain elements, I added a little metallic black. I just had to paint the oil filter. I made a mix of rust and steel for the edges of the discs. Touched up the calipers in black, and touched up the disc surface later in steel. Gave everything a brushing of dark steel pigment. The disc edges needed some depth, so this is Tamiya black panel liner cut 50%. I was ready to give it a final touch and then assemble. I hit the bolt heads with bright steel. I decided to add the structural elements at the far end first. Let's start dropping these in. I used extra thin, and once it's all set, I used Flexi CA. Tacked in the main drive shaft. It has a longer and shorter end as so. This smaller one tucks in above the pan. Now I went around with VMS Flexi 5K CA glue. I recommend adding that part to the subassembly first. It was a pain to put in after. Alright, at this point I went back to the SD KFZ234 for a bit. If you turn the page, there's more to do on the chassis yet. I added that now, in black, but it looks like it's the main outer color. I'll fix it, along with the bar thing, later. Yeah, this bar is camel color, not black. This was the trickiest fit of the episode. It took me like 10 minutes. The springs at the back end. They took a bit of cleanup. All painted and dry brushed. The raised half moon goes towards the front. A view of how these orient. I fixed that one on the right, moving it back a bit. Alright, so this part is done for now. We move on to the truck bed. Drill these out with a 0.9mm bit. You have depressions you need to deal with if looking underneath. Mr. Dissolved Putty, which sands very nice. The muffler, which has some prominent seams to deal with. That seam needs to be dealt with as well. That indexes nicely. Just tack it on with extra thin. You can see here, this part of the underneath is the camo color. I then masked and painted on satin black. The interior floor base coat is this gray, with black traction areas. I painted on a satin black and then masked those areas. Then painted a gray that I thought looked close. That will all be weathered later. More steel pigment. Time to add these and their covers. Lost footage. A mix of satin black, exhaust, jet exhaust, burnt iron, and black chrome. I failed to keep the springs in one piece, and the cleanup was going to be a Herculean task. I had no choice but to make my own. I measured the plastic coil, and I had some wire the same diameter. I annealed the wire and wound them around a 0.1-inch bit. Not perfect, but better than the plastic. I then coated all the PE with VMS metal prep, and the coils too. Then primed. It's like that interior gray in the photo. I was ready now to add the chassis. These are the indexing points. I added it at the back and then the front. Thanks for watching. That was about a month of on and off the bench. I have till the end of July. Be well and happy modeling.